Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to the Struggle to Know. Today we have a very special guest on. But before we get into the introductions, I'd like to, as usual, thank the Cleveland Public Library for lending the support with the audio and video equipment that we're using to record this podcast. And inshallah, let's get started. Bismillah.
And with you, as usual, myself, Hamzah Maqbul, currently Imam at the Islamic Center of Cleveland, and
Musa Sukapong, locally in the Cleveland area, doing what I can, inshallah.
mashallah, teaching classes, teaching the ulum al-sharia at the Dar al-Qasim, as well as overseeing a number of very vital and important activities in the community for youth and for people new to Islam or interested in Islam. Mashallah, too humble. And we're coming to you live on location from Sheikh Musa's house. If you're wondering where all the forest background went, it actually started raining, and we don't want to in any way damage the library's equipment, so we basically are under the cover of the garage, and you can still hear the birds in the background. Mashallah, we get a lot of good feedback about the birds. So our special guest this week is Coach Kahari Hicks. He is a local teacher in public school, and he is one of the most well-known and well-renowned football coaches in Northeast Ohio, if not all of Ohio, if not really all of the country, to be honest with you. And inshallah, we're going to ask you a little bit, Coach, to say a little bit about yourself, your background, and your journey, so that we can kick off the discussion properly. But before that, I wanted to maybe take a moment and hear from you about a very special brother, Brother Luqman Williams, who's a common acquaintance of, I believe, all of us. The first time I met him was in Morocco when I was on my way to study in Mauritania, and he actually kept me in his home for a couple of days when I didn't have a place to stay, which is a very common occurrence when you go out in the path of Allah and the path of knowledge. And at times like that, you know who really values this deen, and who to whom people in that situation are an annoyance. And he passed away relatively recently. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive his sins and elevate his maqam, and make all of the good impact that he had on all of us a sadaqah jariyah for him until Yawm al-Qiyamah. So inshallah, Coach, would you like to first off just share a little bit about Brother Luqman's impact on you? Because I know a lot of people who are going to listen to this are going to have something or another to say about his impact on them.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sallam.
Amen.
Sidi Luqman, may Allah have mercy upon him. I had the fortune of meeting him shortly after I took my Shahada in 1996 through Cleveland State, and Luqman was just always about the spiritual development and having a plan. And I just think that, ultimately, it's just such a blessing to have him in my life, just because of what he was able to do. He formulated the Cleveland Study Group, really introduced a lot of people to traditional fiqh. Luqman was a Maliki, but just encourage people to follow somebody's fiqh and follow somebody's madhab and get on somebody's tariqah, just so you could get some spiritual development. And Luqman was always about having a program, and I think that's something that's direly missing from a lot of Muslims now, is just a spiritual program. And so he kind of really left the blueprint through a lot of the information that he posted on Facebook, and just always focusing on getting ready for what's to come, and that's the grave. And I just think the most pointed thing that Luqman ever said to me was just talking about Ramadan, and how, and Luqman was, and everyone that knows Luqman, he always did sports analogies with Islam. It's one of the things I think he was so gifted at. And so he always talked about Ramadan being the playoffs, and how the best players, they elevate their game in the playoffs when the stakes are high. And he said you can't elevate your game in the postseason if your preparation wasn't right. So if you're just if you're not really praying, you're engaging in all kinds of haram prior to Ramadan, you're not going to flip the proverbial switch and just say, okay, here I am, I'm going to make 20 rakats of Taraweeh, I'm going to catch Laylatul Qadr. And that's just the most pointed thing to me from Luqman, was just talking about the benefit of just preparation, and ultimately, please keep him in your du'as, as we will all need someone to make du'a for us after we're gone. May Allah reward Luqman immensely, make him give us a spacious grave, admit him to Jannah with no accounting and no punishment. Ameen.
Ameen, ameen. So, Coach, shifting gears, please tell us a little bit about yourself. Where were you born? Where did you go to school? What is your journey in Islam? And kind of what are you currently into professionally and in terms of your deen?
Okay, so, I'm born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. I went to Cleveland Heights High School, very diverse school district. I actually had a lot of Muslim friends. And that was probably my first attraction to Islam, is that all the Muslim names. I said, oh man, his name was like Muhammad Abdul Kareem. I said, oh, I love that name. It sounds so, and so, it sounded, just even the names were just, Allah's attributes, even as a non-Muslim, there was something drawing me to that already. And so I ended up leaving Cleveland Heights and playing college football at an institution called Mercyhurst over in Erie, Pennsylvania. And I was actually roommates with a brother, very close brother of mine named Brahim Bakar. And he was Muslim. And during two-a-days, when we would come back for our second practice, the adhan would always seem to go off. So I say I learned a lot of the adhan before I became Muslim, because they had like the little old school mosque that would play the adhan, and so there I'm slapping the adhan trying to get it to go off, but it won't go off. So I think through my whole journey there are always things that kind of pointed me to Islam, that was something that was coming for me. And so Brahim and I had a lot of in-depth conversations, and that's always a point of dawah, is just through behavior. And so you think you can just beat somebody over the head and think they're going to accept Islam. And I just watched him and I studied him, because I'm a very observant person. And he just asked a lot of questions. And I'll never forget, we would come back from a party and he's getting up for Fajr. And I'm like, what's making this person do that? And he's sticking his feet in the sink. And I'm like, Mom, this guy's washing his feet. Like, what's wrong with him? And it's, but it was always, it's like foreshadowing. And so when I was done playing at Mercyhurst, I went to Kent. Met a couple brothers there and took Shahada. And Brahim was the first one I called, and he couldn't believe it. He said, wow, you became Muslim. And he said it just made him elevate his game. But I graduated from Kent State, got a degree in education. I went to the Cleveland public school system for 3 years before I ended up going out to Painesville. So I've been teaching now. This will be year number 21, inshallah, coming up in the fall. And I've also been a football coach the same amount of time I've been a school teacher. So I started coaching at Cleveland Heights, and that journey took me to several other schools, and in a circle back to Cleveland Heights. So it's been an interesting ride, but just getting a chance to interact with youth 99% of your day, just gives you a unique perspective. So I'm an 8th grade English teacher and a football coach.
Yeah, tell me something about being a teacher. Tell me something about Cleveland Heights, being a teacher in Cleveland Heights. Tell me something about the place that you're a coach. Are there the same schools?
Okay, I got you. So I teach in Painesville, and so Painesville is a very diverse district. We're probably about 40% Hispanic, and then a mix of white, black, and just mixed students. And go ahead.
Economically?
Socioeconomically, probably about 90% of kids are on free and reduced lunch. So it's an interesting dynamic. Coaching at Cleveland Heights, it's a very mixed community in terms of socioeconomics. You'll have Section 8 in one area, and you can literally drive 6 minutes later and be at $1 million house. So it's really, really diverse. And so our team is like that. We have some kids, their parents do really well. Some kids, their parents do okay. Some kids, their families struggle. But, I think that's probably what makes it a good situation, is that you have all kinds of kids in my classroom in Painesville and on my football team coming together. So I think that's probably beneficial just for, getting to know people.
And being a teacher, I guess people don't really know or think about that a lot. But being a teacher it's a struggle. It's not easy, and it's a thankless job. Not only in terms of the paycheck, but the students, the parents, all this other stuff. But at the same time, it's like this really noble thing. Like Sheikh Musa and I, I don't want to speak for him. Inshallah, maybe he can speak for himself. But it was drilled into us that this is the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is Rasul Mu'allim. He innama bu'ithtu mu'allim, and I wasn't sent except for as a teacher. that there's like something sacred about it, the sacrifice and what you give from your heart to people who will never understand, but you give for the sake of Allah. I mean, I want to know a little bit, coming from teaching the deen, at least there is some acknowledgement of the sacredness of that process, in, amongst those who are learning the deen. Like, how do you struggle and cope with just not even having acknowledgement from your students, and having students sometimes that their brain is just in a different zone, whether it's their own financial struggles or whether it's their drunkenness from the dunya or whatever. Like, how do you keep giving from yourself, despite that?
I think ultimately, I've even heard you mention this, that your heart has to be in the right place. And if you recognize that you're going to die, you're going to go in the grave, you're going to come before Allah, then you can't worry about what other people said. I think even in the aphorisms of Ibn Attila, it's like, the key to the spiritual path is indifference to people's opinions of you. So, it's a kind of a situation where, you just have to have a pure heart and understand that what you're trying to give to people and whether they give back to you is completely irrelevant, because ultimately you're going to meet Allah. So when you deal with students that are that they're not grateful for what you do, parents, whether it's coaching or whether it's teaching, honestly, I think that's just part of the trial. We all get tried in different ways, and you'll get some very ungrateful people. There's a person that I helped get a scholarship, probably covered everything, probably about a $190,000 scholarship, and he took to social media saying how bad of a coach I was. And so it was actually more so a lesson for me than it was for him, because who am I? Look what Allah has blessed me and my family with, for me to even worry about what someone else thinks about me. So I think that's just the biggest things that you have to do and not expect in return, because, Allah provides the risk in this life and in the next. So when you're dealing with ungrateful people, it's actually more of a lesson for you. Like, what do we take for granted? Like the rain that falls. And we have people dying in Yemen every 10 minutes, and we just throw food away. So that's probably been the thing that I try to check myself with, is when someone says, "Oh, you never did anything for me." I'm like, man, who are you? But then I have to go back and check myself. Like, I have a working car, and most of the world lives on $2 a day. So, what do I really have to complain about? And ultimately, I have a lot to account for myself in terms of what I've been given. So it really teaches you just to shut up and just to really focus on yourself.
Was education something you got into even before you were a Muslim? That's a path you started, taking professionally when you were studying as a university student, or was that something you decided you wanted to get into after you became Muslim? Because again, it does take a special person. And as a Muslim, we can kind of have a broader perspective and a bigger picture and understand that we don't need everything here. But if you don't have that type of consciousness, it's hard to give yourself like that.
Right.
So I'm just curious to know if education was something that you were into before you were a Muslim or not.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I think this is one of the key components to education. I want to be a physical therapist. And when I went to college, at first, I felt like there were people who weren't really making me believe I could do it. And as a teacher, I want to make sure that my students they feel like they can do anything, obviously bidnillah, but no one really, they didn't seem like they supported me in that. They made me feel like I couldn't do it. And I started looking at my dad and my mom, and like all my family were educators, and I always liked to work with children anyway. And so I took that major, and that was, a year before I became Muslim. And so after I became Muslim, I continued on with that until I graduated. But I think it's important to support people in what is it that they want to do, because so many times we tell people, especially ethnic minorities, well, you should do this. When I first got to campus, someone said, you must be a football player. I'm like, we all knew where that came from, but, I think that's part of the issue in education, is you have to support the kids in trying to want to reach their dreams.
Right, inshallah. You mentioned also Brother Brahim, and,
That's
that
my
might be
guy.
another future discussion
That's
in
my
itself,
guy.
and hopefully when he's in town we can have a conversation with him. But you said that you became Muslim after that.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the final factor that made you accept Islam, and who was that through? And would you say Brahim was your primary influence in exposure, and how did him being African American influence your decision?
Brahim and I just we hit it off immediately, you know. And there's so many stories that, you know, I didn't realize I didn't know Muslims couldn't even eat pork. So we were ordering a pizza, and he said, "What do you want to get?" I said, "Pepperoni." He said, "Can't eat that." I'm like, "Okay." Sausage? He said, "I can't eat that either." I said, "Okay, like, dude, what can you eat?" He said, "I can eat mushrooms." I said, "Bro," like they say, "bruh." Now I said, "Bro, cheese and mushroom." He said, "Yeah." So we always got cheese, and to this day, that's like my big thing on pizza is cheese and mushrooms. Like, alhamdulillah, like the effect that you have. And so, you know, Brahim asked me a really simple question. You know, and alhamdulillah, I was never raised like that. That Prophet Isa alayhi salam was Allah, but he said for the people who say he is, who did he pray to? And that was the start of my journey, because at the time I had a girlfriend, and I asked her, I said, well, what do you say to this? And she got so angry. She got irate. And I said, that's like a major red flag right there. And so, you know, to get that irate over a simple question that she was like tongue twisted to answer. And so once I went on to Kent State, I'll never forget, I'm sitting up on the second floor overlooking the commons area with my friend Fred Wheat. And that's why I always say, this is not you, this is Allah. And something just came over me. I said, I'm about to become Muslim. He said, what? Not in a way like it was bad. I said, I'm about to become Muslim. You know, just because I had a friend of mine, Morris Irvin from Cleveland Heights, he went there and he had become Muslim in high school. And, you know, we just started talking. And I said, you know, I'm talking about maybe a month into leaving Mercyhurst, I became Muslim. And it was a challenge, you know, you become Muslim on a college campus. But Brahim, through the things that he said and just my observations of him, I said, man, this is right, because there are certain things that never sat in my spirit before I became Muslim. You know, I'll never forget this. We were in a guy had got inducted to the Heights Hall of Fame. He said, the first thing I'll do is thank my Savior, Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And it just never sat. It just never sat well with me. Even though I was raised Christian, I said, you know, that didn't move me like another human being taking the hit for what I did. And those things never made sense to me. And those are kind of things that Brahim and I talked about. But, you know, I can honestly say him being black had nothing to do with it, because I can just relate to anybody. But the things he said and what I watched him do, and I think that's as important for anybody, you know, watch how you behave, because you are an ambassador to Islam, whether you like it or not.
I asked because when I became Muslim, the first real Muslim I engaged with was another Filipino American.
Okay.
And when I saw him, I saw myself. And brother Eugene Daytona in the Bay Area in California.
May Allah reward him.
I mean, yeah. So he was like the first exposure, and he had been Muslim 2 years. So there's something about just relating on a different type of a level that
is important.
Right. So, but that was something kind of significant with me. So even though you didn't become Muslim in the company while you were in the company with Brahim, you would later kind of just accept it on your own through Allah's guidance.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. Inshallah.
So maybe to switch gears a little bit, I guess the reason I was so excited to have Coach Kahari on the podcast was, I mean, in general, mashallah, I have a good opinion of him, but not only is he a practicing Muslim who's very serious about his Islam, his suluk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I talked about this a little bit in the paper that I put out a little bit ago about the need for people being Muslim, not in the kind of 501c3 nonprofit, like tax exempt church status consumer, like you go to Walmart and you just buy something and then, you go back when you want to, which is kind of a culture of deen that we have over here, where a person may go to, because we don't have like those deep social connections with our neighbors or with our, extended families oftentimes. So a person can go to Jummah 5 weeks in a row, 6th week, he's not there. Maybe because he's sick. Maybe he just didn't want to go. Maybe he, God knows. And like the 7th week, he'll be back and nobody will ask, So there's a little bit of a flimsiness of commitment. And one of the things that made me want to call someone like Coach is that on top of his extensive work with the youth, and on top of the fact that I see that, mashallah, his heart is really invested in their well-being and that, like, mashallah, we regularly, even before I came to Cleveland, mashallah, we have communication with each other, that he'd have a question about deen or about fiqh or something like that, in connection with with some young person that he's trying to help through a crisis in his life. And so not only is he connected with the youth in a way that can really tell us about their issues, in a way that, we grow up and become old and become lame and forget about what it's like to be in those situations really quickly. But on top of that, he's a salik, he's somebody who is a dedicated person on traveling the path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not on this flimsy basis, not on this wishy-washy basis, but I see him time and time again making himself present in all of those places where a Muslim needs to be, in order to traverse that path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I wanted to kick it off by asking you this, that you are in a unique position. You know the challenges that young people go through, in general in this country, and in specific those of our African American brothers and sisters who are oftentimes ignored in the Muslim community, and whose needs kind of fall through the cracks and are not addressed the way that they need to be addressed. And we're not saying this to necessarily say bad to anybody or to take a pot shot at nobody, but in order to maybe share some awareness so that people who mean well but just didn't know any better, can start to make those decisions that they need to in order to, it's the struggle to know, in order to start making those decisions that will facilitate those services for those young people. And in particular, I wanted to know about the African American Muslim youth in the Cleveland area, but youth in general, or African American youth in general, or Muslim youth in general, or issues in general in the Cleveland area. I want to hear about those things. Like, what is it that you want now that you have this platform? The people who listen to this podcast, what is it that they need to know in order to make better decisions?
Being a teacher in the public school system, you see a lot, and so there has to be a space for these young people to come together, because if there's not, they're going to destroy each other. You're going to take some harm going through our public school system. I don't care what anybody says. That if you haven't, Allah has really blessed you.
I second that. I literally wake up with the trauma and go to sleep with it at night.
So so from that standpoint, and one thing I like about you and Sheikh Musa, Brother Tristan, it's about action, and there has to be some type of plan that comes in place. Just talking, one thing that I know, just talking to a lot of different young Muslims, we had one that played on our football team, and his adhan app would go off, and he would be so embarrassed because it's, now me, me, I just don't care. I'll be addressing the team, and my adhan app will go off, and I will not hit the button. I'll let the whole adhan go through while I'm talking, but for me, that's just me. I'm comfortable in my own skin, but a lot of these young people, they are not, and so he would always come and pray with me. But I always make sure we pray in public, so you get used to not being afraid of what other people think, and it's a natural thing. Some people are so hardcore. You should fear no one but Allah. I say, okay, man. And until they put a rock on your chest like they did Bilal, then you crumble. Alayhi Islam. So, Raylahu anhu, excuse me. So we have to provide some spaces for them to be able to connect and talk to each other, because there are a lot of influences pointing them a lot of different ways. I was talking to a former student. She said that they used to throw pepperonis at her. And, we're dealing with two different generations now. You're dealing with the ones in their 20s now, who when 9/11 came along, it was always hard for them. And now you're dealing with a different set that have a lot of different issues, and it's this device right here. It's causing irreparable damage, and we have to start finding ways to get them together so they can, be amongst each other, because they're amongst a lot of people that don't have their same agenda. One of my students told me about, the LGBTQ thing is huge. And if you speak against it, then they make it seem like you're like a Dajjal. That's how they make you feel.
Antichrist,
right? An antichrist. And so, my daughter, she came home and said, Dad, they asked me about, do I believe in the LG? I can't say all these letters, but do you believe in that? I said, what do you tell them? I said, no, I don't believe in that. And so, but it's a constant combat with them. And then, you're being hit on different angles with the fornication, the adultery, the music. And I just, I think as parents, one thing parents need to know, you've got to be a step ahead of your children. You have to be. I think that's the story the football coach in me comes, where you have to be a step ahead of your opponent. You have to always be on the lookout. And I'm sitting here as I'm going through here, and I heard this song, and I looked up the lyrics, and it's horrible. I can't even repeat this stuff on the air, but it's a song called Savage. You look up the lyrics by Megan Thee Stallion, and some of the lyrics in here, just the degradation of women. And this is a woman talking about herself, and this is what our young Muslims are listening to, and they're doing all the dances and all these things. I think as parents, we really have to start being connected into what they are plugging into, what they're watching on TV. Like a lot of these kids, they like to watch the stuff on CW, whether it's The Flash, Arrow, Black Lightning, Riverdale. And there's
CW.
It's a TV network.
TV channel, yeah.
And so, but there's every single show has some type of gay or lesbian relationship in it that adds nothing to the show. And so this is what our kids are watching. This is the music that they're listening to. They're watching people shake their behinds on camera. And you're not going to talk about that stuff if you're around other Muslims. I just don't believe you will. Even these young kids, they won't talk about all these dances and stuff. I think they have to have a safe place to be together, to talk. Well, that means bring all the young Muslim brothers in, let them play ping pong. Let them play basketball in the masjid. Let the sisters do those kind of things as well. Because, it's kind of like it's you versus everybody. And you're the oddball. I'm talking to one of my friends. He said a guy, a player that plays at college now, he said, Coach, it was hard for me to just sit there and pray and stop. He said, because you're so embarrassed. And that's one of the things that our kids are being combative with. And this is all youth. Is just, our Muslim youth is they feel so isolated. And a lot of the sisters, they feel ashamed to wear the hijab. The brothers feel ashamed to wear a kufi to school. And so, then they, the one sister, she said, they called me a terrorist and things like that. And they would make fun of the way we say Assalamu alaikum. They would just make fun of it and make fun of Allah's name. And so, which is damaging to them on the person saying on a different level. But for our kids, we have to have a safe space, because now they go to social media and they're trying to vent, and this is like not a therapeutic environment.
No.
And so I guess to summarize, I get that they need that there has to be a way for all these Muslim youth to connect at the masjid, at a YMCA, somewhere where they can just be amongst other Muslims and just be able to interact and feel comfortable. Allahu Akbar. Feel comfortable doing that. Feel comfortable wearing your hijab. I guess that'll be a starting point for me.
If I may chime in, alhamdulillah, Jazakallah khair, thank you so much for sharing all this information, because I think this topic is so important, and it is not spoken to enough. I also, alhamdulillah, have been in a position where I am working with the youth for many years within the Muslim community and outside the Muslim community. Again, I work at the Cleveland Public Library, and libraries are the stop between the school and home. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the same students that are in the schools, they stop at the library and they spend some time there before they go home. We have food bank programs and all kinds of activities and stuff for the youth, and so I totally understand exactly what you're talking about, because there's a lot of the same things that happen in the libraries. And unfortunately, at times it's a little crazier, because library workers don't have the authority that teachers kind of have. We don't have that connection to the home. We don't have that connection to the parents, and so the youth can act a little more, wild. And so we do deal with that. And what's important for us is building a relationship with the youth to kind of, inshallah, hopefully inspire them to do better for themselves and things like that. But as I started to say, also in the Muslim community, one thing that I have tried to talk about for years, and I still believe that this is very true, a lot of brothers and sisters who convert to Islam, we have a lot in common with the youth. I was 25 when I made my Shahada, and immediately I found myself dealing with the youth more frequently because we were kind of coming from a similar world, so to speak. What they're dealing with in schools and what they're dealing with on the streets and stuff like that, we could relate. It was a little bit different because, you know, for myself, and I think a lot of people who convert to Islam, we're kind of going away from that and we're going towards the deen, and we want more of that. Whereas for a lot of our youth, they're kind of dealing with like a duality.
The attraction of the
situation. Yeah,
dunya.
you know, there's a part of the deen that's at home and in the masjid, but then, you know, there's the whole element of not being in either one of those places. And so some of the youth would come to me and ask questions about like why I became Muslim. And so that conversation really opened up a lot of things, whether it was certain issues that they were going through that they didn't feel comfortable talking to about with other people and things like that. So, I mean, I say all of this to say the youth in general, Muslim or not, they need guidance, they need assistance, and they need a lot from us, our generation of people. And I'll kind of just end on this note because I don't want to like speak too much here, but working with the youth frequently at the library, one thing that I found over the past 2 years or so is my interaction with the youth. SubhanAllah, like over time, some of them came to me and said things like, we appreciate or we're happy about the fact that you seem to care about us. Just because they're so accustomed to no one really paying attention to them, no one actually talking to them about what's important to them. So I think you're 100% right. We do need to build like safe spaces that are not, and I say this just being really direct about it, that safe spaces that are not corny, you know, because the youth, they're not going to come to something just because we build something that's like, oh, you know, this is a cool thing, you know, you should come to it.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
And just to piggyback off of that, this whole like, hey dude, Islam, good Lord. Protestantism tried that in America, and that's why their churches are empty. They basically parasitically took the attendance from mainline serious Protestant churches to this whole like, you know, like rock band Jesus, like, you know, like weird, like, you know, like type of setup, which filled, you know, it filled the you know, put bums on seats to put the show business analogy to work. But it's so empty that like when people realize it's empty, then they just check out from Deen altogether, you know?
Yeah, they're gone.
And so, I mean, there's so much, mashallah, Coach. I mean, along that line, okay, one of the things that we were talking about before we started filming was what? The strange parallels between your, as a Muslim, between a person's spiritual development and how it's more like the experience of being coached on a sports team than being taught in a classroom. Like a person has intellectual development that's more like analogous to the classroom. And then you have, you know, like your spiritual development, though it's not like that. It's not like, you know, turn in your homework by Friday. It's more like, you know, I need more hustle, you know, get a move on it, you know, drop down, give me 20 push-ups because you didn't do this right or whatever, you know. And so how is it like, you know, instead of being on the back foot, like, oh, look, the world is like going to sack the Islam of like every young person because, to be honest, you know, mobile phones and like alphabet soup is like a very scary thing to be up against. But to kind of be on the front foot and like proactive, how is it that we can make those meaningful spaces, that we can challenge our young people into being respectable people spiritually and to being respectable human beings as well? How is it that we can employ those techniques as a coach that you're adept at using in order to bring those things out of your players for the sake of our youth and their deen?
I think the first thing is that, like you said, you can't water down Islam, because we do that, then, you know, you have to be smart about how you do it, but you can never water down the deen. But I think ultimately these kids, just like just like a player, they want to be challenged. And so the players who challenge you the most, the players who are challenged the most, respect you the most. And so, we have a guy that's at Ohio State right now, and he was always challenged. And he respected that, but we have to challenge the youth and just be straight up front and honest with them. I told one person, I was talking to a former student, I said, what's the first thing asked about on Yom Kiyama? She said, the prayer. I said, Allah's giving you the first answer to the quiz. Now, I'm not saying that, I said, so how can you know that the first question is salat and you don't pray? You have to be direct and honest. I said, now I'm not talking about the quality of your prayer. Whether, the Dhuhr comes in at what, like sometimes during
But brother, we want to have a movie night in the masjid.
Yeah, and you know what, and that's fine. Just find the right movie to show. Yeah. However that may be. I'm not even that's above my pay grade. But if Dhuhr comes in at 1:37 and you pray it at 3, that's one thing. But just not praying at all. Yeah. And then your focus and slot, that's something totally different. But the fact that that if you can tell me out your own mouth that the prayer is the first thing on the Day of Judgment and you don't pray, mind blown. And you just have to be direct with. And I was direct with a former student, and she said, "You know what? That makes a lot of sense, Mr. Hicks." I said, "That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying about, if you're praying it at its recommended time versus praying at the end. I'm just saying praying in general. Pray the 5 daily prayers, because that's far. There's no negotiating in that. Me and my daughter had a conversation about that. There are certain things. There's no negotiating. You have to make the 5 prayers, and you have to be direct with them. Mm-hmm. But like the Prophet ﷺ, he was all about balance." Not taking the stick and beating it over their head, because then at that point they've got so many other things they can turn to. Yeah. I can go to the movies and go hang out with this boy that I think is really cute, or this girl that I really like. I can do that. But if we're just gentle with them, but we're direct and we're honest and we're upfront, and we try to bring the deen to them in a way that they understand. And I'm not saying water it down. That is your gentleman's pay grade. You all understand the deen. You're 100% more qualified to teach than me. But putting it in a way that they understand, putting situations in their life that they understand. You've had someone make racial comments to you. Bring up the story of Bilal and Ray Lahuan, and then you taught about the Sahaba's promised paradise. There's lessons in every one of those situations that can apply to us, and obviously the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But you've got to get to the kids when they're young, give them a foundation, because that's what you said. He said at some point the default setting kicked in, because that's what happened to me. It just hit me, and I think we have to be honest with these kids, but we also have to give them an opportunity to be kids, and that's why I said let them play basketball in the masjid. And someone can correct me. I don't think there's anything wrong with playing basketball. Go in there, have some fun. Whether that's the brothers playing by themselves, the sisters play them by themselves. If you like to play some type of board game, play it. Get them together and talk deen. Give them both. Because these young kids, I'm sorry, we're not sitting here. I mean, most of these kids are not in a madrasa learning Quran. They're just not. And that's just the reality of things. But these kids right here, they need to have deen, and they need to be able to just connect and not feel pushed off by the deen, because there's so many of us that we just push people away.
So one thing I'd like to add to that, I think you're 100% right, but dealing with the youth, one thing that I've noticed, and I'm kind of asking a question here more than making a statement, because I also don't know, but the youth in the masjid that I have dealt with over the years, one of the things that I noticed as a common thread amongst them is a lack of the sense of belonging. And so, mashallah, before we started, you two were talking about the analogy of using sports and teaching things about the deen. And the first thing that came to my mind was, with sports teams, there's a sense of belonging. You belong to something, and so that sense of belonging is almost like a sense of ownership. So you feel like I'm contributing to something. Mm-hmm. And with a lot of the youth, what I've noticed is they lack that. They don't feel like they're a part of anything. They kind of feel like outcasts to a certain degree, and so they kind of just get in where they fit in. And that is something that I just wonder, are we doing a good job of? And so I kind of pass this on to people who know more than I do, but what can we do about that? Like when it comes to that sense of belonging, because just telling the youth to practice the deen when they kind of know it, like you said, you ask the sister that question and she knows the answer to it because she's been taught that, but she's not living it. It's not a reality for her, or for the young men that might be in that boat. Like, what can we do to strengthen that element of a sense of belonging to something and with something?
And before they answer, she didn't know.
Oh,
And that's a problem in of itself.
She didn't know?
No,
Did not.
she did not know. And that's a problem
She did not know.
which is a
Okay.
separate conversation.
SubhanAllah.
I mean, one of the nice things about being a coach is you can be straight up. You can be straightforward, right? And that's why Sheikh Hamzah mentions there's a strong parallel between sports and coaching, a stronger parallel between coaching and sports than, and being a Muslim trying to tread the path than there is with like a classroom setting, right? Because you can't always sugarcoat the truth. You have to be very upfront.
Right.
However, when you coach a particular athlete, they're usually there because they want to be there. So they're willing to listen to you, especially in football. Football coaches are the most straightforward, right? They're not going to sugarcoat anything, right? They will scream down your neck and make sure that you understand. And why will they take it? Because they love football. And they want to be on the field, and they don't want to get benched. And they were raised like watching in the NFL and seeing, these athletes excel. So they want to be there. So you can tell them what they want to hear. It's hard sometimes to be that straight up and that straightforward with the Muslim youth, especially if they're not feeling their deen and they haven't understood their faith. And they're not appreciating that, because now you're just trying to tell it. Now it's more of the classroom, where you're trying to get them to like do their geometry homework and they don't want to, right? So that's another challenge in itself. But we have to find a way to like make sure the deen from a young age is beloved to our kids and to the youth, because it's hard to fix it once they're already at a point that they're resenting the deen. So people in your life, it's important that they meet the right people in their life, the people who can kind of get across to them and get through to them. Otherwise, it's hard to get around that. You can't just be straightforward to anybody. Allah knows best.
And I think also too is that you'll receive a message from a coach that you respect and you care about, that you know is invested in you. So if you invest in these kids and you listen to them, like, think about what you just said. They don't feel included. How many times in Masha do we ever even include any kid in the decision making? And our ego, our nafs gets so tied up in it. I'm the adult, you're the kid. And the law says you're supposed to obey your parents. It doesn't even say that in the Quran. It doesn't even say it. Correct me if I'm wrong. It doesn't say you have to obey your parents. You have to treat them well, right?
Well, I mean, in the sense of yeah, like it's not a master-slave
right
relationship. And this is one thing, along the lines of what you're saying. If anybody had the right from amongst God's creation to be obeyed without hesitation, it was the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he does have that. He does have that right from us. However, وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ وَأَمْرُهُمْ بَيْنَهُمْ شُورَى وَأَمْرُهُم شُورَى بَيْنَهُم عفوا. That Allah Ta'ala mentions this as like part of the shafaqah and part of the mercy and the kindness of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Which is the reason we love him sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is that he used to ask opinions from people. And so if he's going to ask opinion from somebody, it's no decrease or discount on anyone's respect to ask for the opinion of anybody, even if you don't end up following it. Sometimes it's just like somebody cares that you're there, and this is one of the reasons I feel like I was compelled to have this discussion with you also, Sheikh. Is that one of the things our elders told us, is that when you're calling people toward the deen, if you don't love them and if you don't see them as worthy of being uplifted by Islam, if you don't wish inside of your heart good for them, you will never make da'wah to them in any useful way, shape, or form. If you see yourself as better than them, or you're bringing like some sort of like gift of your charity to like an ignorant savage or whatever, you will never touch their heart. And I think part of that is like maybe the balance between what Sheikh Musa and what Coach and I maybe were saying before, is that you have to bring that powerful spiritual game. Not that it's a game, but you have to bring that power. You have to bring that spiritual power when you tell somebody about the salat. You have to bring that spirit, and that comes through what? It comes through ikhlas. It comes through making a person feel, you don't have to pump their ego up, but you have to make them feel like you're important to them, that you mean something to them, that you're not just like a notch in someone's belt. Some people do that. They dole out shahadas, and then afterward, like the next day, someone calls them and asks them about something. It's like, no, you're in the bag, so we're going to move on to the next, victim or whatever. You got to, the spaces, you were talking about. And that ties in with what we were talking about from before, that 501c3 optional Islam, nobody feels like they belong. When you're an adult and you're like, well, I got to get stuff done at work, and I'm going to come to Jummah like at the last moment, and I'm going to, miss 2 Jummahs and then go to the third one because I heard there's a hadith that like says that, like it's really bad if you miss 3 in a row or whatever. That's in some rat race sense, there's a convenience in it, right? You can't grow up on that though. You can't grow up on that. You can't grow up in like you see your own folks are not praying on time. You see that they're not taking the deen seriously. They're not taking the ulama seriously. They're not taking the ilm seriously. They're not taking the obligation to make progress on the spiritual path seriously. But then afterward, they're like, my son's gay. My daughter has a kafir boyfriend. My boy is smoking weed or like drinking alcohol or whatever. Like at that point, why is why what universe is that any of that going to make sense in for anyone?
I just think the relationship piece is so important, though, Sheikh. With the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, people were drawn to him and they loved him, so that they're willing to listen. Not that any of us are the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but if we want to get the youth to listen to us, there has to be some investment on our end, because we're trying to help them just like other people have been trying to help us. And so, like Sheikh Musa was elaborating on earlier, you have to make them feel comfortable. When they come in, and if they like you, they're gonna listen to you. And that doesn't mean you're trying to be, like you said, the cool person and the rock and roll type stuff. No, it's just that it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like, we know food's at the basement of the pyramid, but when there's also part of that belonging piece, that if they don't belong to something, they're going to go to something else. So if there's something missing, they might chase drugs, they might chase a gang, some join a sports team because it gives them a sense of belonging. So if they are drawn to specific individuals, then the message that comes out their mouth, they'll listen to. Now that could be for a good or for a bad thing. They could be drawn to me because like, hey man, I know people, and this happens all the time in school, especially these young ladies. You look really nice today. Your hair is really pretty. And that's the first good compliment they've heard all day. Next thing you know, they're ready to commit fornication because someone said, I care. And so for our standpoint, and this is real. And not saying, parents, if you want to know this is what happens in the classroom. There's a guy sitting next to your daughter shooting his shot, as they say now. That's the thing. Right. When I was in school, it was like you had to spit your game. Now it's like they shoot their shot. And these guys, they shoot their shot every single day. Mm-hmm. It happens every day. And if you don't believe that it happens, I'm here to tell you, it happens every day. I hear locker room talk. I have to correct it. I see things in the hallway. I'm like, oh my goodness. And they're shooting their shot. And every day, your daughter is getting a shot at her. Your son is getting a different type of shot at him. And so if we don't, as parents, start off with that relationship and build that foundation, and anybody that's trying to work with you, if we don't have a relationship with them, it doesn't matter what we say. And so if we know that this deen can save you, if we don't build the relationship, and that's the coaching piece. Right. The best coaches are the best communicators. They're not tyrants. They're the best communicators. And if we make these youth understand, like, let's sit down and talk. What matters to you? And then, once I know what matters to you, I know what makes you tick, because the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't go at everybody the same way. Right. He found, he would find, I know there's one person there. I think he made the cow's or the thing's milk turn, and the person took shahada that way. Mm-hmm. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he reached people in different ways. And so we just have to find out what makes these youth tick. And so I'm saying we just have to be. I'm not saying that we have to all be on social media like that, but we need to understand, what are they listening to? What type of music do they listen to? What type of TV I'm not saying you have to go and watch what they watch, but you had better have a general idea of what's going on inside their head, because you'll never be able to reach them. And it's a constant battle.
I noticed that about you because just at the beginning of the podcast, you looked up a song just to hear, just so you're aware of what the lyrics are.
Oh man, my brain is fried.
I mean,
reading
it's right.
It's horrible.
Right.
I can't believe they listen to this kind of stuff. But my dad said the same thing about
it.
me.
It can't be all just, well, I don't listen to music. And, if you really want to connect and reach certain people, you might actually have to look up those lyrics. You don't have to listen to the song, but you might want to know what's being said.
Right.
And that's the coach in you, and that's the coach and the communication to be able to reach people, because even my most impactful coach, he was the strictest coach I ever had and the loudest coach I ever had too. And whenever he came very loud at me, it was always well received, because I know it came out of love. He used to say that, after being called dad, the best thing I think to be called is coach. The thing that I enjoy being called is coach. And little things like that, he communicated that. He let us actually know that he cared, right? And he was open about us, with that, with those feelings that he had. And you talk about parents and relationship with their kids. I don't know if we're in a time where you can just simply expect your kids to just obey you and listen to you, and you come in and you're expect them to straighten up just by looking at you, by your presence. There needs to be some type of an interaction, especially if they're in the public school system, and especially if they're engaging with these people who have a very, very different lifestyle, because they're being socialized a particular way. And you learn sometimes, more just from socialization than you ever will in a classroom. They're spending more time out of the house than they are in the house. So having that is definitely important, for sure.
Along the lines of what you were mentioning about belonging as well, and one of the problems I think is that oftentimes in the masjid space or in religious spaces, as an adult or as a person who's an authority, we have to be a little bit conscious about the choices we make. If we don't give that same encouragement to the children of different backgrounds. If the African American student or a young person in the youth group or whatever is not greeted with the same enthusiasm, or if we see that they're out of place and we don't give them, that affirmation proactively, those kids grow up and then they remember those things and they carry the pain, the anguish of it with them. And people say, well, I didn't mean it that way. And you don't, okay, you didn't mean it that way. Great. We'll give you the Nobel Prize. You're not going to go, no one's going to pray for you to go to Jahannam if you actually didn't mean it that way. But there is, intentions are important, but they're not the whole thing. We have to also learn, how to do things the right way. And the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he had this, these beautiful habits. He would say something like, affirming the piety of rubbing your hand on the head of an orphan child, right? Being an orphan is like the superlative estrangement. You literally don't have any parents, And so the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned that this is from the great acts of piety, from those things that soften the heart, is what you find that child who's estranged. Whether it be through a disability, whether it be for racial, ethnic reasons, whether it be for socioeconomic reasons, whether it be through some trauma that they went through, whatever it is, and do that. Just something like sit them next to you in the youth group, or make sure that they eat first when the food is being distributed, or when whatever. We have whatever, we give out Snicker bars at our youth halaqah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring it back soon, inshallah, from lockdown. What is it? What are those practical things that you can share with somebody who's in that position, that they can try to mitigate first of all, see what the signs of estrangement are, and how can they mitigate those feelings of estrangement from those people who are or maybe don't feel as welcome, at first, in the group.
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
I think
everyone, but yeah.
I think our kids are. I think our Muslim children and our youth in general, they're estranged from our deen. And whatever are the causes to that are things where we have to take a deep look And I honestly said, like, even when I first met you, the first thing we just started communicating immediately. And that's so important, is that we have to talk to these kids. And we, as parents, they have to bring their kid to the masjid. Even their daughters. Bring your daughters. And let them sit with the older women. Let them, and some people, like you said, they have a problem with like a little 2-year-old running around in the back of the masjid. They have a problem with that, but like you said, that stuff that gets ingrained in your mind, you remember that stuff. That stuff come like you enjoy going to the masjid. And I could tell you, for any parent, please make sure that your experience in the masjid is a good one, because we dreaded coming to church. 2.5 hours, no one listened to you, and it was a drag, and so when you're making your khutbahs, make them engaging. Because if we want to draw these youth in, there has to be constant communication. I keep saying that, and I guess from my standpoint, we like you said, your youth programming, we have to have this youth programming. And if parents aren't going to bring their kids to the masjid, they shouldn't be surprised when you said, "Oh, my son's gay," and now all of a sudden, now you're on a totally different thing that you're trying to fight, or my daughter's pregnant. And these things happen, and I try to talk to teachers from Maslow's pyramid. If you sit down and eat with those students, you're gonna find out everything. And they tell you stuff, and you're like, man. Sometimes they tell you stuff you just have to downright report. And for our youth, the biggest problem right now is parenting. They're not being parented. This is non-Muslim youth and Muslim youth.
Yeah.
And until we get a handle on that. And that's the part that's very disheartening as a teacher. You get a lot of conversations and hear a lot of things. You're like, man, this is borderline, and this is borderline. I take that back. It is child abuse, and we have to sit down and have conversation. Like you said, if you're a brother, bring that brother next to you. Assalamu alaikum. How are you doing? How are things? If you're the sister, bring the sister in. Talk to them, because the sisters have a different set of issues, and people understand that hijab is under attack.
I'm glad you brought that up. Can we hone in on that? Because I know you are very positive and impactful in the lives of both your male and female students. What are some of the unique issues that the male students are experiencing? What are some of the unique issues that the female students are experiencing? Because unfortunately, we don't have that same level of facilitation for girls in the masjid space and in the Muslim spaces. We very rarely break even with the boys, and even what we're doing for the boys is insufficient. And like that thing that you mentioned, like it's one of those things in our culture, for whatever messed up reason. And when I say culture, I mean Desi culture, Arab culture, or whatever. It's not universally there, but there is some lingering jahiliyyah from in people's thing. They just don't celebrate their daughters like they should. And it's like, dude, you got to tell your baby girl, I love you. You got to tell her she's beautiful. Otherwise, she's gonna listen to it. She needs to hear it from someone. And if she doesn't hear it from you or from her brother, from her husband, for those of you who are married, from if you ain't telling your wife how beautiful she is, how pretty she is, how much she means to you, she needs to hear it from somebody. She's gonna hear it from the wrong person. And at that point, you can kick and scream, haram, how could you do this? But so what are some of those things, coming back to the question, specific issues for the boys, specific issues for the girls?
For the boys, it's lack of modeling of what a man should be. And this is crossing all lines. I talked to one person, he's Arab, very good football player, has no father in his life. And this
is he an orphan, or is it just that his father ain't getting it done?
More bounce to the ounce shake. He bounced, and this is a mother trying to raise a young man on her own. And this is a common thing amongst our youth, is that with the boys, it's what is projected as what being manly means.
Right.
And excuse my language, but in the songs, money, hoes, and clothes, this is what's being put out there this is what being a man means. You got money, you got girls, you have dunya possessions, and all the music It's what's projected out there. It's what's projected in the media. And this is what it means to be a man. Sleep with as many girls as you can. Treat them however you want. And you're this hard body that has no emotions. But then you get those boys alone and you start to talk to them, then they break down into tears because there are so many. It's like the ship, and it's got 18 different holes. And you're trying to plug each hole, and that ship's just gonna sink. But for the boys, they need proper male modeling. How do you talk to women? Because this is a serious issue. How do you treat women? And I'm sorry, non-Muslims and Muslims alike. That's the biggest test for men is women. How do you treat them? Because everything that these boys are seeing, they're being inundated.
That's a hadith, by the way.
I
mean, that's not just the coach is dropping hikmah for sure, but that's the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned that. Yeah.
And so they're being inundated with it every single day. And in the classroom and on the football field, we have constant conversations. This is how you treat women. You don't walk around and look at this woman as some object to get in bed with and then to impregnate. And that's it. You're like a rooster that just goes around the hen house just impregnating. I said, because I had to check one kid. I said,
you're like the rooster, but you just don't get up for Fajr.
Right.
Yeah. I'm like the rooster, yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah. But yeah, I said, you talk about these girls and call them all kinds of names. I said, dude, where's your dad? He said, he gone. I said, so what do you think he did to your mom? He said, he got her pregnant and he bounced. I said, so you're going to repeat the cycle? I said, do you want your son to feel the way you do? And you get him in closed space. That's why it's a safe space. They're going to cry. They're going to break down, and they're going to talk about all the issues at play because they're being poisoned with this thing, this toxic. And then you have the toxic masculinity, which is a totally different issue. But that's the biggest thing with these boys is no one's teaching them how to be men because so many men they're just bouncing. And feel no responsibility, and so then the young ladies they allow themselves to be disrespected, and the guys feel like it's okay, and it's just your knobs, and you end up with this vicious cycle. For the girls, it's the lack, and I guess the same thing. It's the lack of the father. So many of these girls they don't have a father, and some have them for different reasons. One of my former students, her dad was murdered by Israelis. They shot and killed him, and she says I still see in my dreams him being shot and killed. That's psychological trauma that we don't even want to talk about. This is the PTSD that we don't want to address. And so these girls, they don't have a lot of positive male influences. And you have to imagine, put this from a girl standpoint. I see my mom every third day, she has a different guy in the house. So a different person is sleeping with her and leaving. It's just like taking and going. And so you see that stuff enough, you start to think that's what your value is. And then so a student said to me I'll never forget this. I said, Mr. Hicks, she got an A on the side. I said, oh, Mr. you love me. I said, how's me giving you earning an A equate to me loving you? But it's because they don't have anyone telling them. And so from that standpoint, they're being inundated. This is how you dress. You wear these booty tight shorts, you walk around, you put your body out there. And you go around looking for a suitor, and it's like literally it's caveman type stuff where you just beat the woman over the head and drag her back. It's like this is what they're being conditioned, and it's the music. I'm telling you, I'm ratchet, I'm bougie, I'm a bitch. Like this is what they're listening to, and these are their models. These are their advisors.
That is their role model.
These are their role models because their mom's not home, their mom's not modeling. And so someone has to teach them their self-worth. Like you just can't just get in bed with someone because they say, I like you. And so, I mean, from that standpoint, that's the area where these girls are different from the guys. The guys, it's about this bravado, tough guy stuff and teaching them how to be a man. With the woman, it's the self-respect. And it's a vicious cycle because the girls want the love, the guys want to be the big guy to all the girls, and it's back and forth, and now you have girls that are psychologically damaged because they've been in bed with so many different guys, and then you've got the guys, they don't understand what love is, and because they've been abandoned, and it's just abandonment on both sides.
And the thing is, society doesn't think of it this way, but we oftentimes put the stigma of that damage on the women. Man, those guys are damaged.
They're damaged. They're damaged.
And I'd just like to add to this, what makes it even more complicated, going back to the parenting piece, is that the parents are also a product of the same environment.
They're damaged too.
It's the same music that the parents are listening to, and they're trying to live that lifestyle because, I'm 37, and I know that many other people my age are on the same note. They're on the same thing. They're listening to the same music, and that's the lifestyle that they want to live. And so, you hear the statement, babies raising babies. That's something that I've heard many times, like in our community. And so, in mid and late 30s, going into your 40s, you're not a baby anymore. But if you still have that mentality, and you're raising those children that were born around 9/11, subhanAllah.
You never had a chance to live your life.
Yeah,
and now you're living yours at the expense of your kids.
It becomes a really big issue.
Not to mention the domestic shake and shake. That's another issue. Well, I've got female students. They're getting knocked upside their head at a very young age, and then the guys, they're doing it, but where are they getting it from? The TV. Put your hands on her. And this is the kind of stuff that, those are the issues. Teaching the men how to be men.
Right.
Teaching the women to love themselves. But like you said, you've got severely damaged men that are completely incapable of functioning in a relationship. And you've got women, they're damaged in a way that they turn men away. So when you get old enough to when you can really be in a marital situation, all the default settings that have been programmed, they just surface. And then it completes complete and total dysfunction. But like you said, when you meet the parents, you kind of see it.
Yeah, it's interesting in the immigrant community as well. I think a lot of the expectation is like, well, we don't deal with those things because we didn't deal with them from where we came from, and it's just going to stay that way. And I got a mortgage to pay, so mother work, father work. Mother work overtime, bring home the halal bacon. Father work overtime, bring home the bacon. And, as long as you keep doing good in school, you'll get money. And since our problem when we were kids was poverty, and we solve it through money, as long as you do good in school, you'll solve your problems through money as well. And oftentimes, even some of the most accomplished professionals, their children come out basically victim to the same cycle, which is common through public schools and through the phones and media and things like that. It's common to immigrant and native and indigenous Muslim children. They are subjected to it as well. Why? Because the parents thought that if they could give a little less time and give a little bit more money, they'll solve the problems. Where money is not going to solve the problem that's not there with time. And this is, I think, a good segue to something which also needs to be discussed. And I Sheikh Tamim, he compiled the book about Futuwa, about the chivalrous character of a man, according to the teachings of Islam. Sheikh Abdul Karim Yahya in Detroit, Imam Dawood Walid, they actually have a Futuwa program, for training the young men to be upright men. And one of the problems is we don't, the age that we live in, it sees patriarchy as a negative thing. The word patriarchy has come to have a negative connotation. And yes, there is such a thing as toxic masculinity, but if you are not giving a space, like Coach was saying, where you allow boys to aspire to be a man, if you don't respect men, if you don't respect husbands, if you don't respect fathers, this is one of the things that annoys the smack out of me. Whenever there's a marriage and someone gets up and gives a talk at a marriage, there's always a joke. It's always at the expense of the husband. And it doesn't annoy me. Why? Because my ego is bruised. I mean, sometimes the jokes are funny as well, like whatever, we can all laugh at it. The thing is, there's an institution, just like you don't want kids to take their parents as a joke. You don't want students to take their teachers as a joke. You don't want young people to take elders as a joke. They can have a free relationship with them in which there's a little bit of lightness, but there's a bedrock, a foundation of that you respect this person in order to get something out of it. We have completely made being a man into a joke. And if you don't respect a man for behaving like a man, because what is the shimatul rijal is al-ata. The cardinal virtue of being a man is that you give. I mean, both in a biologically literal sense, But then in a spiritual sense, you embody that in everything that you do, that you're the one who gives from yourself. You're the one that everybody, if you're a real man, if only one person in the group should be hungry, one person in the family should be hungry, it's you, everyone else should eat. If one person should be tired, it should be you, everybody else should be rested. If one person should, you give. But if you don't, if you make that into a joke, who's going to want to do that? And if a man isn't a man, it's not only going to screw up our boys, it's going to screw up our girls. It's not only going to screw up things at school, it's going to screw up our families. It's going to screw up our masjid. If there we don't, and this is so hard, Sheikh Musa, it's so hard to find people. Even it affects us, it affects people, like imams, it affects like leaders. There's nobody who wants to give anymore. Everyone wants to take. And this manly virtue, it's so hard to find anybody with it anymore. If we don't have spaces where we get together and we at least respect the fact that a man is someone to be respected. A man is someone valuable. A man is somebody that we love as men and as women, as children, teachers, students, wives, husbands. If you tell a woman respect your husband, people automatically think, oh, you're enabling abuse. I said, no, I'm not saying that you should throw him a party because he beat you. If that's happening, call the police. You know what I mean?
That's an excellent
point.
point.
Call the police. But if he's putting food on the table, and he takes out the trash and all that stuff, he's your man. You should, it's the pride of your family. You should respect him. And those of few of us who are lucky to have that dynamic in our houses, maybe that's a rare and rarer gift Allah has given us. But I think part of the solution to this, lies with this very underlying fault. That what is it, right? The whole thing about someone said, oh look, Sheikh, you're very passionate against Black Lives Matter. I said, astaghfirullah, why would you say that? So you wrote that paper. I go, no, I'm very passionate for Black Lives Matter, but why is it that verbiage we're here to disrupt cisgender family patriarchal dynamics, and we're here to basically gender confusion, like Imam Dawood says, that just muddle the line between a man and a woman. If you don't empower men to act like men, then what is it? You're just going to completely rot the entire thing from its foundation. It's not people look at me and say, oh look, you turban and beard, this guy's a psycho. I don't lose sleep at night because someone's gay. If that's the test Allah Ta'ala gave you, if that's what you do behind closed doors, people commit their sins. I don't approve of it, but you know what I mean? It's a thing that happens amongst a number of other things that happen. But when we use that in order to undermine the entire foundation of the family, to undermine masculinity, healthy masculinity and healthy manhood, it's not just going to screw up our boys.
It's a trickle down effect. It's going to get to the girls because there's no family structure.
Right.
But I think that's part of the thing, though, is like you said, but we have to teach these boys how to be men and teach the women how to be women. But there's and that's a societal issue we're battling. Like if you say that, obey your husband, that's looking at oh my God, now you're his servant. No, that's not what was said, because the Prophet ﷺ, he was always in the service of his family, so he served his family. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the biggest thing, though, is when you watch these young girls and young boys, they're in the minor leagues of dysfunction. Mm-hmm. And so by the time they're ready for the major leagues, they're totally dysfunctional, completely incapable of maintaining any kind of quality relationship. They have no social skills, they have no interpersonal skills, and it's creating dysfunctional families. You have men that have no desire to get married. You have women who, and let me backtrack. You have men who have no desire to get married, nor would they make a suitable spouse anyway. Then you have women who want to get married, but they're so flawed and damaged that a decent man won't want them. And it's a bat. You bounce the ball, comes right back up, and it's a continuing thing. We have to find a way to deflate the ball so this thing doesn't keep bouncing back and forth. But I think it still comes back to, getting with these youth and talking to them and getting them into the masjid, getting them in front of people of knowledge, so then you all can do your work. Because I have my work to do, you've got your work to do, but communally, and you talk about the African American youth, they have an even more difficult situation because they're taking this hip hop culture to the white kids and Arab kids and Asian kids, they'll listen to this hip hop, but they're not internalizing it. Our black kids are taking this and running like this is gospel. Like this is just, one of the worst things that ever happened to hip hop was NWA. One of the worst things to ever happen, because if you study the roots of it, and I'll keep going back to music, because parents better pay attention. Your kids listen to hip hop. Trust me.
Brothers, Maulana Saab know what the NWA is.
Don't,
your kid is not gonna get by if you don't know what it is. Maulana Saab knows what it is. Maulana Musa, you know what it is. You guys may not even want to pray salat behind us after knowing what that means.
But when they look at it, that changed the whole game.
Yeah.
The hip hop music before was all about empowerment and knowledge and uplift.
Right.
And then once the NWA hit, that whole thing shifted, and to now I can't even explain what this is. I mean, this is just Shaitan playing the role of like Geppetto, and just pulling and just leading you to Jahannam.
I remember a brother with overactive imagination. He once told me about a long conspiracy theory about how like the CIA had it in for Eazy-E and they gave him AIDS. And I'm like, dude, have you ever heard the guy's music before? With people like that, you don't need no CIA, brother.
But that's another thing, Sheikh, that has to be addressed too. That we have a lot of our Muslim youth, they're committing fornication, and these STDs are out here.
They're out there.
Yeah, I heard one of the most heartbreaking stories about there's a married man who got HPV from his wife because she's having an affair. Now, these things that you can't get rid of, and this is, if we don't bring these youth in and get them to love Allah and His Messenger and the masjid and the Muslims, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they're going to fill that need with something else. And and like I said, you get herpes, you're not getting rid of that, and then you might reform. You might one night you might mess up, and then you say, you know what, I want to do this and this and this, and now next thing you know, you've got to tell this prospective spouse, look, I've got this STD, and you can't even fault someone for saying, I'm a pass. And these are another things that are out there. Like, you got a lot of STDs out here, and this fornication is running rampant. Yeah. And it's another issue that has to be addressed. Like, this, and that's one, I guess, where I'm hardline on it. Where no, you can't go to prom. No, you can't go to homecoming. And that's just one area where.
I actually, I had to go to prom because my older sister wanted to go with her friends so bad. And so she like Clash of the Titans, cause the eldest daughter is like the little junior matriarch in the house. So her and my mom, and so my mom's like, okay, you can go. You have to take Hamzah with you. And it was one of like the most decrepit experiences of my life. And that's why I have to second this sentiment.
That's one area where I'm hard line.
That's just not who we are. That's not what we do. And the thing is, you can say no to your kids that, oh, you're not going to prom. If you are not replacing with something else, you are the problem. Okay, you tell your children we're going to go to Umrah instead. We're going to go to Turkey. We're going to go to Morocco. You know what I mean? We're gonna
take them out for some halal pizza that
Thank
night.
you. Or bring all the Muslim sisters together. Let them go in a masjid and dress up and have
prom night. Yeah,
let them all come together and just be together. They're gonna forget about even with the brothers. You don't have to go to the party.
My wife told me, she called me and she said, because our kids, they know we're fundo, man, mashallah. We weren't like that. I used to dress up for every Halloween, but because we know those things, so our kids are, we're like, yeah, we don't celebrate no Halloween, and so they know. So they told the teachers yeah, we're not gonna, my mom's gonna come pick us up, and we're not gonna participate in the Halloween party at school. And so my wife called me on Halloween. She said that, and I was at work. I was, and she said that one of our children cried, not necessarily because they didn't know that it's haram or that they wanted to be part of it, but there's something about, again, estrangement and deprivation, that feeling. Nobody likes it. I don't like it. Nobody likes it. I recall those feelings as a kid. Everyone goes through them. It's a human thing, right? And so I was just thinking about my baby crying about about suffering that they had for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And my wife let me know, and so on my way home from work, I went to the store. I went to Pete's Fresh Market, which is a really nice grocery store Chicago has a good grocery store game, mashallah. And I went to the bakery, to the candy section, to the freezer section. I remember buying all those ice creams that my mother like would like smack us just for looking at. You know, hell if we were ever gonna buy them. You know, I bought every single thing. I went home. I stashed the freezer. I stashed the cakes, cookies, everything. And then I came home and I you know they didn't know that any of this happened. And I asked my kids. I go. I heard that one of you like because you couldn't go to the Halloween party, you cried. And they're like, you know, embarrassed, you know, and because they know it's wrong, so they shouldn't even want it. They're embarrassed to admit it. I said, it's okay. You don't have to, whatever, you know. If it happened, you don't feel bad about it. I said, this day, go look in the fridge, go look in the freezer, go look in the kitchen. So they looked, and their eyes like lit up, and you know.
And they forgot about Halloween immediately.
I said this day, no, nobody gives up anything for the sake of Allah Ta'ala, except for Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala gives them something better. And Yawm al-Qiyamah, you'll get something even bigger. It will make your eyes open up even more than this.
But you said something so powerful, Sheikh, and this is what I've just been trying to say. But you said so much better. You better find something to replace it, because, and that's what one of my former students told me. She said, Mr. Hicks, I just always felt like the oddball. I didn't date. I didn't have a boyfriend. I did, you know, and so it's always, and then it makes Islam look like the restriction. Oh, you can't go to this party. Oh, you can't do this Valentine's Day dance. Oh, you can't do this Christmas party. But we're not replacing it with anything. Mm-hmm. So, like you said, bring all the Muslim sisters together, and let them just go be in the masjid and just sit down and talk and eat. And you think they're going to care about prom when there are 100 sisters in hijab looking nice, and the sisters come in, mashallah, you look so beautiful. Or you get the brothers together. I mean, we know they well get tuxedo. Let them go wrestle and shoot hoops and play soccer. Give them a healthy alternative where they can sit there and say, you know what, man, that prom's for the birds, because my student told me. She said, after graduation, Mr. Hicks, I finally understood that this stuff was pointless. But it took her to understand, to see it from a different perspective, because she had nothing to replace it with. She's isolated. And so she's estranged. He's estranged. They're the one person in that classroom. And now you got, you know, and now you feel like, as Dr. King said it, like an exile in your own land.
You know, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam described this state. He said that the deen started strange and it will become strange again one day. So glad tidings to the stranger. Anyone who remembers this, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala accept it from you.
Ameen.
And on the flip side, if I feel like if there's a message anyone who listens, if I could give to them, if you want to serve the deen, if you're not a Hafiz al-Quran that can like deliver like an award-winning Salatul Taraweeh, or like you're not qualified to give the Jummah khutbah, or like you can't donate like $1 million for the new like Masjid Taqwa chandelier or whatever, that's fine. If you can do this, there's children out there whose parents they should know better and they just don't, or whose parents aren't there. Allah Ta'ala took them back, or from circumstances they bounced or whatever. If you first for your own children and then for the children of the Ummah, the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, all of them are our children, whatever their color is, whatever their race is, whatever land they're in, whatever, if it doesn't touch your heart, knowing that a child is going through suffering, like you got to check your iman. And I'm not saying that judgmentally, because we all go through those things. We have to check our own iman sometimes about those things. But if you want to do something for the Ummah, you go and see those broken-hearted, those little broken hearts, and you do something like Coach said, like, arrange for that, sisters get together, arrange for that, that brothers get together, say a good word or give an alternative to, someone's kids whose parents may even be there, but they're just knuckleheads and they're not paying attention, in order to like soothe that heart, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala forgive you all of your sins and give you Jannah, like the one time that you, whatever, ate a Chick-fil-A sandwich and Sheikh Musa told you it was haram. Allah Ta'ala overlook all of those things for the that have passed, for the one who does that for the sake of the children of this ummah. Coach, is there anything else you wanted to get out there? You wanted to say?
I just think that, just from my experience, we have to be able to put, and this is like comes from Luqman. This doesn't come from me. We have to have some type of program, or you're going to stagnate. As a coach, when we get ready to start the season, we have a program set up. We're going to do this on this day, this, and this on this day. So come game day, this does not look like some type of raggedy, uncoached, undisciplined team. And as Muslims, we have to have a program together, or we're going to produce raggedy, or we're going to be ourselves raggedy, and then our kids are going to be raggedy as well. So I'll just understand that there are a lot of things going on in the school system. Our kids are seeing a lot. Please make sure you're looking at I guess I'm just about that invasion of privacy. Maybe I'll be corrected, but you need to know what your kids are doing. Please do some monitoring with those phones at night. I said, because that's when most of the damage is done. At night in the seclusion when no one's around, take the computers, from that standpoint. Just be cognizant of your children, build a relationship with them. So if they love you as the parent, in turn, when you try to tell them about Deen, they'll receive the Deen from you. And then we have to put stuff in place for our youth. We have to get obviously with COVID, it's hard to get people together, but when the restrictions are lifted, we need to bring these young men together in their safe space. We need to bring the women together in their safe space so they can just not feel ashamed to wear the kufi, to wear the thobe, because I can tell you there are a lot of young men out here, they like the thobe, but they're ashamed to wear it. And we have to be very cognizant, because this is coming straight out of people's mouths. I'm listening to young people talk about it. So just from that standpoint, I don't think I've brought anything earth-shattering to the table outside of the fact that just I'm at the ground level. I see what goes on every day. So if we don't provide an alternative to substitute fun for these youth, they're going to find the haram fun that's going to just take them down a path that we don't want them to go to.
May Allah Ta'ala bless you and reward you for that insight, because you have a unique perspective, because you're seeing it from both sides. And now as a parent, how many kids you have?
4.
Allah bless and protect them all, mashallah. So this is new territory, right? So alhamdulillah, you can tell that your own parents did a good job putting some values in you, but it's a whole different ballgame when you're trying to raise Muslim kids now. So
it's hard.
We know what it's like kind of coming from a particular lifestyle and kind of been given that freedom on to kind of reign free.
Mm-hmm.
And they're now trying to figure out how to harness that. So that's some definitely appreciated insight to a lot of the parents who maybe don't understand what's happening in our schools and in our societies, and that they need to be hip to the game, they need to be involved, and they need to be hands-on when it comes to raising our kids. So may Allah Ta'ala protect all of our youngsters, all of our kids, because we have to identify these issues when they're young. It's hard to undo when they're older, and you can't now run to the sheikh or run to the imam to help my son or help my daughter when they're already at a point of no return. It becomes much more difficult at that point. So Allah Ta'ala help us.
So Coach, you mentioned the program, mashallah. Sheikh Musa runs literally regular classes, Dar al-Qasim. You can go to daralqasim.org and look at the Cleveland branch, inshallah, for those of you in town. Obviously, there's the Chicago branch and a number of other branches. Where are we up to? We up to what? Knoxville, Tennessee, Bay Area. There's a couple of places. I think Sheikh Amin mentioned to me that there's one under development, inshallah, for North Carolina.
Correct.
And there are other places. There are other mashayikh. There are other ulama of haqq, mashallah, who are running these things. We mentioned Dar al-Rahma, Sheikh Abdul Kareem, and Imam Dawood in Detroit. But you got to get yourself with the program. And if you want your kids to be with the program, the number one way of saying that is not to grab their ear and saying you better be in a program. You yourself show them that this is important to you, and if they see their father, the boys and girls, they see their father is religiously dedicated to the program like a man, it will affect them.
And that's the thing too. Is sometimes when you announce and inform the community about an Islamic school or classes, oh, that's wonderful, I'll tell my kids about it. It's like, all right, I'll have my kids go.
Yeah.
Hold on now. You can't just send your kids and expect them to get fixed, right? So, Sheikh, Jazakallah khair for pointing that out, is it starts with our own example, because what we do speaks much louder than what we say. And when they see the importance of the deen in our own lives, that's the first step. And they do have online options for the people who don't have, right, a Dar al-Qasim or other type of facility in their cities. Dar al-Qasim does have like Islamic Essentials online now, mashallah. We have high school classes, and by as a philosophy and as a program, Dar al-Qasim doesn't offer anything before high school. But there was such a demand for that in this community here that we actually, as an exception, started middle school classes for, classes for middle school age kids, I should say. And mashallah, there's been a pretty good response to that. We do have things like open gym. ICC has done their best to make, to renovate the gym and make it available. And we had that twice a week before the lockdown. And hopefully it'll start up again afterwards. And there are brothers who come to that you might not ever see at the masjid. Alhamdulillah, for those 2 nights, they'll come and they'll be at the masjid, catch a prayer, and connect with other brothers. So we definitely need a game plan, and we need to be strategic. Otherwise, you can tell when the team hasn't been coached. You know when they have been coached. And talent will only get you so far. So we have the most beautiful deen, but if it's not, packaged correctly, and we can't game plan and actually put a strategy together to help our kids and help ourselves practice it and adopt it, then we're going to be struggling. Allah help us now.
I mean, Jazakallah khair for that. That is so much needed.
Inshallah, Jazakumullah khairan for listening with us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make our gathering for His sake and forgive us for any lack of sincerity that we may have had. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever words that were said of benefit, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make them enter into the hearts and change people in order to rectify the thing that's broken in the ummah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, no matter who and where. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from us. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barak ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma rabbana atina fid dunya hasanatan wa fil akhirati hasanatan wa qina adhab an-nar. اللهم أعنا على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك. اللهم يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك. اللهم يا مصرف القلوب صرف قلوبنا على طاعتك. اللهم ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. اللهم يا حي يا قيوم برحمتك نستغيث أصلح لنا شأننا كله ولا تكلنا إلى أنفسنا طرفة عين. Ya Allah, forgive us for all of our sins. Ya Allah, make this gathering of ours, inshallah, a gathering in which the markers and the exits and the junctions that people cross in their lives, it gives them the impetus and the motivation to take the right path, to get off the path that's going to lead to destruction, to get off the path that's just going to lead to pointlessness and meaninglessness, and allows us to get onto that path that leads to you and to your love and to realization and to enlightenment and to your Jannah and to your pleasure in this world and the hereafter. Ya Allah, if we said anything that you're not pleased with, Ya Allah, show us the error of our ways and give us the tawfiq of repentance. Ya Allah, if there's anything that you were pleased with that any of us said, Ya Allah, accept it from all of us, both the speaker and the listeners, Ya Allah, and vouchsafe it to us, protect it for us, that we should be able to benefit from its nur on the Day of Judgment, we should be able to benefit from its nur in our graves, and that we don't do anything to jeopardize it or screw it up before that time. وصلى الله تبارك وتعالى وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم ربنا اغفر لنا وارحمنا وتقبل منا واختم لنا بالحسنى ووفقنا لما تحب وترضى به وارفع بأيدينا راية الإسلام. بركة الفاتحة. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.